A college football tradition like no other.
Yes, sirree, boys and girls.
Or the guy that just won't leave.
Wow, that is sad.
The Dave Hooker Show. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Back to Dave Hooker.
Here we are with Caleb Calhoun. Welcome to the program and a lot going on. Tennessee, a Tier 2 national title team, according to CBS Sports. Joe Milton makes the rounds in New York City. He was on NFL Network, and he wants 3 rings. And a comparison that I pointed out, I'm going to pat myself on the back just a little bit, a comparison I pointed out to one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the SEC for 1 year. Figure out who I'm talking about. That's a tease. Also, Joe Milton left off the list of most dynamic athletes at quarterback. We'll discuss that, why Josh Heupel is actually number 1 on that list down in the state of Florida. And Deion's in the news again. I know that's a real shocker when it comes to transferring NIL money and all that good stuff. And another Georgia player arrested for a traffic incident. How serious is this? And then the first edition of our Smokey Hot Takes, Tennessee's best quarterbacks of this century. So no Vols on the top 75 quarterback list of this century, according to ESPN.com. We shall debate. So we'll talk some Dobbs, some Bray, some more, and a live report that we're excited about from Zach Haire of Eddie Sports Treasures. He is in Hoover, Alabama, so we'll get his thoughts on the Vols and the SEC tournament. Load it up, kids. How are you, Caleb Calhoun?
I am wonderful. How are you, Dave?
I'm fantastic, and good morning to the message board. We think we got the echo thing that was bothering me yesterday, so let me know if not. Travis says, what's going on with the Athens Speedway? A reference to the Georgia Bulldogs, and they like to drive fast. That's pretty good. They haven't managed to put the brakes on those issues quite yet.
Where's the rim shot, Dave? Do you have it?
I can have it, but I actually have to be honest with you. I stole it from Mike Griffith of Dog Nation. It is rare that he turns a good phrase in prose, but he did so I stole it from him, and I'll give him credit. Probably the last time. But he gets credit this time. Mike Griffith is just a fantastic man. All right, here we go. We're getting moving right now, as I want to start it off with Caleb. We were on the air when Joe Milton was making his rounds and when this story came out. So let's get to it right now. It is what the H, because Tennessee not considered a top tier national championship contender. Here we go. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Oh, what the H today, brought to you by Bassey Lawn and Garden. What the H? Why would you buy your industrial or commercial lawn products from anywhere other than Bassey Lawn and Garden? Go to Bassey.com to learn more. Bassey Lawn and Garden, man alive, it's worth the drive. So Tennessee named a Tier 2 national title contender per CBS Sports. Here's why it qualifies for what the H? There is only one team on tier number 1. It is the Georgia Bulldogs right now. The same way in the middle of Alabama's run with Nick Saban, it was them and everybody else. The old argument was, would you take the field or would you take Alabama? That's where Georgia is right now. So to me, everybody's tier 2, but a lot of other teams were tier 2 as well. So I find the whole concept of having multiple teams on the first tier, and I would like for you to run those teams down, as a little bit absurd, to be real honest with you. So what are the teams that CBS Sports had on the top tier?
Okay, so on the top tier, and for anybody who wants to check this out, I'll give it a shout out real quick. This is Chip Patterson's 100 Days Out College Football Names, Games, Storylines to Follow, just 100 things. So among those things are the teams in the national title contention. Georgia's at the top for them. Just below is Alabama, then Michigan, then Ohio State, then LSU, then USC. Then here's what really gets under my skin.
So let me be clear. Who is tier one? Who is on the
all
the
of
first?
those are tier one. All
Okay.
of tier one.
Repeat them again, because this is strange to me. And I know he's going by odds in Vegas, which I'll lean on, but repeat those again, please.
Okay, so Georgia's number one at the top, and then Alabama, then Michigan, then Ohio State. Now, I get your point. There should just be a tier one and nobody else. But if you were going to do a tier one and then a tier above Tennessee after that, I'm fine with Alabama, Michigan, and Ohio State. I would probably give Ohio State better odds than Michigan. I don't know about you, but I know Michigan's won the last two, but Ohio State has more talent.
Okay, people that know me would never call me this, but if you want to call me this, go ahead on the message board. Call me Homer Dave, but given the schedule and what Tennessee has returning, I believe quite firmly that they're right on par with the other teams as far as potential to win a national championship that aren't named Georgia.
Well, let me make your head explode then, because here's
Okay.
where my head exploded.
Okay.
So just below them were LSU and USC. I'm okay. I'm actually still okay with that. Here's where my head explodes. Texas, Florida State, and Clemson are in tier one. And then you get to tier two with Tennessee. Let me repeat that, guys. Texas, Florida State, and Clemson are tier one. And Tennessee is tier two. I did my Florida State rant last week. I think it's time I do a Texas rant at some point. They have no business being a tier one title contender. This is laughable to me.
No, you've got Quinn Ewers that is decent, is okay, but this Texas team should have beaten an Alabama team when they were trying to find their way. Alabama was, because they didn't have the skill position players that they were used to, and I don't see Texas being anywhere close to potentially winning a national championship. They might in 2024 or beyond, but this doesn't feel like the year to me.
No, not at all. And here's my thing. So I got no issues with programs that run pro style offenses that kind of run the standard pro style and standard, defense. You know what I'm talking about. Those pro-minded coaches, Steve Sarkisian, Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, they're all in that mold. Wouldn't you say?
I kind of miss them a little bit, to be real honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. So Sarkisian's in that mold. The thing when you run those offenses, though, they are more dependent on Jimmys and Joes than any other type of offense. Does Texas really have the Jimmys and Joes to compete with Alabama and Georgia right now?
No. And even with the transfer portal, you can flip a roster faster than ever. But if they're not comparable to Alabama, who took a dip in talent. I mentioned the skill position players other than Bryce Young last year. So they took a dip, and I still don't think Texas is as talented as Alabama. I don't think Texas is as talented as Ohio State. Travis says, I bet Dave's mortgage that Michigan will never win a title under Harbaugh. I agree with that, but I don't think Texas is as talented as Michigan right now, based off recruiting numbers that we have in analytics. I don't understand the love for Texas. I sort of kind of can see it for Clemson, although I don't think they'll ever recover from having a second head coach in Brent Venables. That's just what I feel about Clemson. And I don't understand.
John Chavis, would you say?
More like David Cutcliffe. But
Cutcliffe is cut out to be a head coach. Cutcliffe was head coach material. Venables, I don't think is head coach material.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll find out. But he got the job at least. He got a head coaching job. John Chavis never got the job. So anyway, I think that Cutcliffe was a better coach than Chavis. I think that basically Tennessee had two head coaches on their staff for a number of years. So I think that Clemson had that. They've lost that with Venables, at least head coach worthy, if not one of the most solid defensive coordinators in the nation. I don't think they're going to have that again. Florida State, tell me, explain the love for Florida State, because when we had a production meeting at 5 a.m. this morning, and then I followed it up studying their roster. Certainly, they've got good quarterback play. Certainly, you would think they're going to be better and trending the right way, but a national title contender as of 2023, I can't figure out what I'm missing.
You're not missing anything. You are right to believe that Florida State is being massively overrated. I talked about this last week. I said it for years. For the past quarter century, Florida State has been the new Notre Dame. Media members go out of their way to prefer Florida State. Look, they covered for Jimbo Fisher when Jimbo Fisher was running the program into the ground with discipline issue after discipline issue after discipline issue.
And he quit on recruiting because they wouldn't build him the facilities he thought he needed. Yes.
And also, there was a lot of cover run for Jameis Winston. Forget the rate charge is bad enough because that was horrible on its own. But how many other incidents did he get involved in? And he still, Dave, let's be honest, no other quarterback would have won the Heisman under that scenario in 2013. Peyton Manning lost out on the Heisman because of a 1996 trainer incident that happened. And so they don't usually, but Jameis Winston gets the break and he wins the Heisman. So they run cover. They've been running cover for FSU because of the goodwill Bobby Bowden bought. I'm going to point this out. Not only did they not beat a ranked team last year, they went 3-3 against Division I schools with a winning record. How is that? I'm a tier 1 national title contender a year later.
Yeah, I'm now with you. And I kind of was surprised when you said that Florida State was anywhere on the level of just beloved and immediate darling like Notre Dame. And I'll still argue that Notre Dame's slightly ahead, but I'm beginning to join you that it's at least in the ballpark of comparability, because that team is not ready to win a national championship. That team is not ready to make a 4-team playoff. Again, I've mentioned Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, of course, Alabama are in better position than those schools. So to me, everybody's second tier, and Tennessee's one of those second tier teams because of who they have returning and because the schedule that lines up for them. They have a chance to improve throughout the season thanks to some well-placed sort of patsy games. So yeah, I think everything lines up really well for Tennessee, and to have them second tier is fine as long as you have them with everybody else except for Georgia. That's the way the tiers should wrap up.
See, I would break with you. I would be okay if you want to have a tier either with Georgia or just below Georgia ahead of Tennessee with Ohio State and Michigan and Alabama, just because it's Alabama, but then Ohio State and Michigan because, look, but the winner of Ohio State and Michigan is going to the college football playoff. There's just no debate. There's nobody else in competition with them. And so that's why I'm okay with that. USC, I kind of get only because, again, who's in the Pac-12? We know what Lincoln Riley can do. He's got an easy road in the Pac-12. And then the border would be LSU, who I'm very high on, but that's me being high on them on just my own gut and my own analysis, not based in where they should be. So I understand, yeah.
So what about my guy, Joe Milton, hitting New York? New York City, like they did last year with Hendon Hooker and Cedric Tillman, to make some NIL deals to get these guys out in front of the cameras. And Joe Milton certainly wants to be so. As we saw Anthony Richardson of Florida get drafted high on potential, I think Joe Milton could be that type of guy. However, people want to compare him to T. Martin because the natural comparison is to say Hendon Hooker, like Peyton Manning, got Tennessee to a championship type of level, and you want Joe Milton to be the guy that wins you the title, i.e. T. Martin. The best comparison for him is not Anthony Richardson. It might be in the draft process, but he's played already as much as Richardson has. And by the end of this season, he'll have played a lot more. The best comparison's Cam Newton. 6'6". I wrote it on offthehooksports.com. He brought it up. I can only assume he read my column. So that's what put that in his mind that he should be comparable to Cam Newton. Thank you very much, Joe, for being a regular visitor to the website offthehooksports.com. I think Cam Newton's a fantastic comparison in a lot of different reasons. He also said he wants to win 3 rings. You don't actually get a ring for winning the East, and I think you just get 1 championship overall. But how did you think he carried himself on Good Morning Football and some other platforms that were out there? Thought he did a great job. He's way different from Hendon Hooker. He's more outspoken, I would say more affable, whereas Hendon Hooker is reserved. But I thought, just like Hendon Hooker did last year, that he represented the University of Tennessee extremely well.
I thought he's doing a great job. I thought he did a great job representing himself too, and I have a lot of respect for how he carries himself. I'm starting to get a little nervous for his sake about some of the media hype. We're talking about a guy who, he may fight you on this all day, but I don't care if he wants to fight you on this. He lost his starting job. I don't care if he disputes that at all. He lost his starting job. And when people compare him to T. Martin, and even Cam Newton, those guys somewhat, Cam Newton never lost a starting job. T. Martin was completely under the radar in 1998 until he broke out when the season started. Joe Milton, we're talking, I mean, Good Morning Football brings on a guy that was a backup the last 2 years that we didn't know was going to keep the starting job in spring practice. And I'm turning into Dave pre-spring practice right now. But I got to be honest. And now we bring up a Cam Newton comparison who had at least the second best single season in SEC football history. Yeah, you can't argue with the first. Joe Burrow had the best, but definitely the second best, maybe tied with Johnny Manziel in 2012. But one of the greatest single seasons in the history of college football. And we're comparing Joe Milton to him now. Are we with that and him going to New York and on these football NFL shows when he hasn't started the last 2 years, and he did lose his starting job, and he's lost his starting job at 2 different schools, and there's been massive questions about his play. Is he getting a little bit too much national press now?
Okay. This is where I like to think of myself, even though I'm almost 40. I like to think of myself as adaptable, Caleb. 5 years ago, Dave would have said to you, and I like to refer to myself in third person. Dave does that quite often, doesn't Dave? I would have said to you, Caleb, they're pushing him too much. He's too out there. I would have said the same thing about Hendon Hooker last year, but the game has completely changed. This is like adding the forward pass in recruiting and roster management, and that is NIL money. So I would have said last year, you're blowing him up. He's got too big of a head. He doesn't need to be out there. Same thing for Joe Milton this year, Hendon Hooker last year. What are you guys doing? Tennessee's PR arm is crazy. And it may end up having a negative effect on some of these guys. It didn't with Hooker last year, but it could. But you have to take that gamble because then you're in front of millions of people and recruits, and you can sell this NIL and the ability to get exposure. So old Dave of years past, would have completely agreed with you. Now you got to push him. You got to push him because it's better for the program. So I got zero problem with it. And it's not him calling Good Morning Football and saying, hey, can you put me on? This is Tennessee making this happen. So I think it's kind of like charging for parking when you go to a game. You don't want to pay for parking, do you? But ultimately, that's just part of it. So pushing these kids before perhaps they're ready is just part of it. Same thing with Hendon last year.
But we knew last year that Hendon was going to be a great quarterback in 2022 because we saw what he did in 2021. I know you think, yeah, he was.
Let me stop you there. I didn't. Okay, so
we didn't know
maybe
he was going to be as good. Well, we didn't know he was going to be as good as he was. But
I thought. I'll be honest with you. I thought he would be a B quarterback last year, and he turned out to be an A+.
We don't know that Joe Milton's even going to be a B quarterback this year. That's the thing. Okay, when you're pushing these guys, when you're pushing Hendon Hooker in 1997, when you're pushing Peyton Manning pre-NIL era, no one, let's be honest, yes, Peyton Manning was the number 1 draft pick had he gone out in 96, but no one knew Peyton Manning was going to have that year he had in 97. Still the greatest single season a quarterback's ever had in Tennessee football history. And pushing Eric Berry in 2009, these are players that we knew were at least going to be very good starters. We knew Hooker was going to be very good. I mean, even you said B, that's above average. I thought maybe
very good though. Very good means B+ or A-.
Well, he was B+ or A- in 2021, so I thought he was going to at least be that in 2022. And so
then I was too hard on him because I still had questions about his accuracy downfield.
Oh, I did too, but I didn't have questions about his decision making, and I knew his accuracy was better than Milton's, and those two things were a big deal. So we knew Hooker was going to be good. We didn't know he was going to be great. We don't even know that Joe Milton's going to be good. We don't even know that he's going to hold on to his starting job this year. So I'm thinking more. I'm getting vibes of, dare I say, 2005 when Fulmer was going on national media and saying that Eric Ainge has Peyton Manning qualities.
I don't remember him saying that, and I was.
He did.
Did he really say that?
He said after his freshman year, Eric possesses many of the qualities Peyton Manning had.
Well, that's the dumbest statement ever. I mean, and I don't mean any offense to Eric, but I mean that's a once in a not even generation type of leader and type of work ethic. I can't believe he put that sort of pressure on Eric. I'm sure that was to try to motivate him in some shape, form, or fashion. And Philip did that through the newspaper on several occasions, especially with the offensive line. He'd say they'd have a bad day and they'd come back and they'd have an incredible day the next day. So I guess that actually I'm still taken aback that he said that, and I probably wrote it.
Well, what Fulmer acknowledged later, and remember he was holding open practices for ESPN during that 2005.
Yes, I busted one of those up.
Oh, you did?
Did I tell you that? I was on the radio and I was like, you can't hold a private practice just for ESPN. So I just left the radio show and they did call-ins to me, and I drove down the practice field and I did live reports while ESPN was there standing on the practice field, because I didn't think it was fair that you open it up for one media outlet and not the other. And next thing I know, Bud Ford's screaming, shut her down, you can't broadcast from here. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Well, so Fulmer acknowledged the reason, and it was around the same time he said this about Ainge. The reason he was doing all this promotion, if you remember, Auburn had just gone undefeated the year before and had been left out of the national title. He felt he had a national title caliber team, and he was worried that if he didn't do all the promotion, that Tennessee could go undefeated and be left out of the national title in 2005. And of course, instead they were 5-6.
Yeah, I guess. Still a really dumb thing to say and puts too much pressure on a young man.
I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, it's dumb in a lot of ways.
Particularly when you couldn't even name him the starter.
Yeah, I mean, there were questions about Peyton Manning being a starter just because everything went haywire his freshman year with Brandon Stewart and Todd Helton and all that, for those that don't know. And a lot of people like Stewart more. As a matter of fact, it was pretty close to 50-50, maybe 60-40 Manning. But that was because you were in the middle of the season. When you have the offseason to figure it out, you've got to know your starter, and is it Rick Clausen or is it Eric Ainge or is it Brent Schaefer? You've got to have a good idea for that, and he apparently did not. Now, another thing about Joe Milton, he was left off a list of the most dynamic athletes at quarterback. Was that just an incredibly stupid mistake? We'll discuss 2 minutes off the Hook Sports. What should people be doing, Jacob Warren? Because you're nice enough to remind people about what we're doing. If I can find Jacob Warren talking to us, I believe I can. Maybe I can't. Now the pressure's really on because Jacob Warren has disappeared from my drops. Say something smart. Oh, there we go. Jacob Warren, what should people do?
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
I do. 2 minutes back with you with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
To own the more that owns every job, then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassy's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassy Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We are grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
From our message board, Travis says that there were still accuracy issues, are still, with Hendon Hooker and toughness. I hadn't heard toughness, and it was pointed out on the message board, and I'll go back and watch that he appeared rattled after he took a couple of hits. Was that something that after he would take a hit, he would be rattled for a couple of plays? That's our message board. What do you, did you see any of that? Because I didn't, but I'm willing to go back and look.
I think there was a little bit of front running, and what I mean by that with Hendon Hooker is if one drive stalled, a few drives would stall. And if he scored a touchdown on a drive, then you'd have a few drives where he kind of got hot. But I think that has a lot more to do with just Josh Heupel's system and tempo than anything. I think Heupel's offense is a bit of a front-running offense. So I think that in that regard, if a quarterback takes a hit or a couple of hits or, you know, there's a sack or anything like that, it just kind of messes with the tempo and the flow of what they're trying to do, I think.
Well, and he's so well protected, too. We don't have a great sample size of him getting hit to check his toughness, to be real honest with you. How about Joe Milton?
He got more in 2021 because of his pocket presence issues, but he got so much better at that in 2022. So,
how about Joe Milton? Left off the list of most dynamic athletes at quarterback. That leads us to 4 downs, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Really? Not on the. How many are on this list, Caleb? How many quarterbacks are on this
11.
list? He's not one. Huh?
11.
11. And he's not on the list. 4 downs. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and on.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Look at me, no glasses, no contacts, because I got LASIK. That's Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. They're local. They've got individual vision centers as well that'll take care of your eyes, just an annual checkup. But if you need LASIK and you don't want to wear contacts and you don't want to wear glasses anymore, that's the way to go. Cataract surgery as well. And they're local. That means a lot. All right, 4 downs. First down is now. UCF quarterback John Rise Plumlee is the number 1 most dynamic athlete at quarterback in the nation. Okay. This guy's a pure runner. If we're going to talk about athletes, everybody's athletic now. There's not Mike Vick and Chris Winkie. There's not that variance of comparisons. Okay. So everybody can run around to some extent, but dynamic athlete at quarterback, I don't think Plumlee nearly as much as I think Joe Milton. And Plumlee's number 1. He is he's a running back that can throw at that position. I don't know if you've seen him play, Caleb, but he's almost not quarterback. I mean, he runs around a lot.
It's almost like Brad Crawford of 247 who did this only based this on how fast the guys are. Not even like whether or not they're runners, but just their pure speed. Because John Rice Plumlee, yes, is a faster runner than Joe Milton, but Joe Milton's got a way bigger arm. And quite honestly, I think Joe Milton is a more effective runner because he's bigger. He can withstand more than John Rice Plumlee. So I don't get I don't get how you could think in any way outside of just speed, he's a better athlete than Milton, because he's not.
He doesn't have great hips as a runner. He's kind of like Cam Newton. He's a straight ahead runner. But that's because he's so big. I mean, in every single physical category, he would defeat Plumlee, except for maybe straight out speed, maybe a little bit of a wiggle that Plumlee might have that Milton doesn't. Jaden
Daniels. In a fight, who wins?
What's that?
If they were in a fight, who wins? It's Milton every time.
Yeah, I would pay to see that, actually. Jaden Daniels, LSU number 2. And you're going to hear this comparison a lot from afar since they don't play each other like they did last year. But Jaden Daniels, if you only saw the Tennessee game, really came on throughout the year. He's actually a better runner, but still, I think there's a debate who's the most dynamic athlete. And we don't even have Joe Milton on the list, but I'm curious who you think is more dynamic, Daniels or Milton.
I still think Milton. I think Daniels, I do think Daniels might be the better quarterback this year, but I think Milton's a more dynamic athlete. I mean, you're right, he's a better runner, but that's relative. Again, like we're talking about, Joe Milton can withstand so much more contact than anybody on this list because of his size that I just don't think that. Again, we're talking pure athlete, and arm strength should be factored into athlete. Now, it doesn't look like you factored that in at all in this, but if you factor in arm strength, running ability, size, physicality, speed, I don't see how any of these guys are better than Joe Milton, and that includes Jaden Daniels, who, again, probably only beats Milton out when it comes to speed, and that's still debatable.
Message board saying Jaden Daniels has yet to prove diddly squat to me. He's talented, but he's not nearly as good as Hooker, and he won't be as good as Milton could be. The key word is could. So what's the top end on these two guys? I think Joe Milton has a much higher ceiling, that we could agree with that. As of May 2023, Jaden Daniels scares me more as a natural runner. So, you know, you can't make a living at quarterback running over people. Joe Milton's going to be able to run over more people, but that's not going to last long term. So I'm going to take Jaden Daniels as maybe slightly more dynamic because I think he has instincts to take off and run, instincts that great quarterbacks like Bryce Young really didn't have. He didn't take off and run as often as he should have in his first year as a starter. Hendon Hooker had to fit into that. I think that's just more about playing in game time. So that was second down. Third down, Jordan Nix at Florida State and Bo Nix are number 3 and number 4 on most dynamic athletes, respectively, in the nation. Holy
You mean Jordan Travis at Florida State, and then Bo Nix
sorry.
at...
Yes,
Yeah.
but we got 2 Nixes, Jordan Travis and Bo Nix, excuse me.
You see, this is where the inconsistency shows in. Okay, Travis, again, if you're using the standard, if there's one standard and it comes down to speed, I get if you have Rice Plumlee, Daniels, and then Travis in your top 3. But then you go to Bo Nix at Oregon, who was at Auburn. And I mean, he's again, arm strength. He's not an athlete. Like, I remember Bo Nix, he was under pressure a lot. If he was under pressure, he wilted all the time. He wasn't that good in the pocket. So where is this coming from?
I don't get the Bo Nix thing. I don't get the Bo Nix thing. I think that Joe Milton is more dynamic than both of these guys. So that was third down. This leads to fourth down. And there are going to be a lot of these lists that come out. And I think Brad Crawford does a great job. But when you post these things and they're out, it's not exactly like the newspaper being on somebody's front porch step, but it is kind of like that because it's out. Fourth down. Is this just a flat out blatant omission? Just a mistake?
Yes.
I think it is too. I think it is. I think it's just, we'll try to get Brad on, but I think that he just put the list together and maybe left it off on purpose for a talking point for guys like us. But I think this is just a flat out oopsie.
I mean, the thing that led me to believe it was a mistake. I would have said maybe he was only looking at people who started last year, but then he had Jalen Milroe at 11, who started one game. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, this has got to be a mistake.
Josh Ward is going to write about, and he'll join us tomorrow. He's going to write about the best fan bases to be a part of right now. And we've got our teams picked out. We discussed it yesterday. There's an honorable mention. For the love of all that's holy, doesn't Joe Milton get an honorable mention here? So, I mean it's something.
It's 247 Sports. That is one of their biggest followings is Tennessee fans, right?
Well, it's not as big as the On 3, but yes, it's one of their bigger ones. Okay. I think that On 3 would probably have them 1, and then everybody else would be tier 4. They'd have Joe Milton tier 1, everybody else is tier 4, based off some of their reporting. Just being frank with you, they are all Vol, and that's fine, but that's not where you would ultimately go for your.
They're probably already comparing him to Joe Burrow and saying he could surpass Joe Burrow's 2019 season.
I think it was written that he's left Joe Burrow in the dust, and Cam Newton is crying over just watching spring practice tape. That's what I was told that the On 3 folks are saying, but they're doing a great job. I think this might be just a flat out omission, but I would easily have Joe Milton in the top half of that 11 that you mentioned. No question.
I'd have him number one. Really? I mean, who's more physically an athlete? Best athlete means most physically gifted. Who has more physical gifts? Just raw physical ability than Joe Milton.
Okay. All right. Jaden Daniels scares me more as a runner. When things break down, I haven't seen that consistently enough out of Joe Milton. And it's the same thing as last year. Well, Bryce Young. So I covered Alabama for Saturday Down South one year, and there were times where you want to keep your eyes downfield, but at some point you need to tuck and run. So his first year as a starter, which would have been 2021, there were times where he should have just tucked, ran, slid, pick up 8 yards, keep yourself ahead of the sticks. So I think Hendon Hooker struggled with that because that's something you develop during games. And Hendon Hooker ultimately became very good at that towards the last half of the season. And I think Joe Milton will as well. But to think that he's not going to do it with that kind of physical ability, I think is absurd.
See, I get if you're defending, you're more scared of Jaden Daniels as a runner. But if depending on the quarterback you have, you're also more scared if Jaden Daniels is running for you because Jaden Daniels is more likely to get hurt than Joe Milton when he gets hit. And I say that, guys, Jaden Daniels to me is the better quarterback. We have the message guy who said that Jaden Daniels has something to prove and he could be as good as Milton. I don't get that. Jaden Daniels has proven way more than Milton has at the college level already. He just won the SEC West. Okay. So how are we going to sit there and say Daniels hasn't proven anything, but Milton has? So I think Daniels is a better.
I think the impression left by the Tennessee LSU game probably still sticks strong in Tennessee fans' minds. Jaden Daniels got better. If you watch football all day like you and I do, and not just the Tennessee game, not to say you guys on the message board don't, but some people don't. And I mean, Jaden Daniels was really good and got really better. And that game was a total fiasco disaster of the sun in their early start, sun in their eyes, opening kickoff, and then the turnover. It just got out of control really, really quick. So I don't think that's an indication that Jaden Daniels is forever an average or below average quarterback. But Tom leaves us with this. The moon still has a black eye from when Joe Milton hit it with a football. But as somebody just go ahead, Travis, get ready. But as somebody told me within Tennessee's program, it's great if you can throw it to the moon, but if you can't hit it, it doesn't really help. So he still has to prove that. And he still has to prove that to some people within the program to be consistently accurate.
What we're saying is, so far, Joe Milton is early 90s Randy Johnson before he learned control with his fastball.
Ooh, like it. Has Joe Milton ever killed a bird in flight with a ball?
That was when Randy Johnson got his control, though. To be fair,
yeah.
I was
He
a big
meant to
Mariners.
hit the bird.
Yes, exactly. I was a big Mariners fan because Ken Griffey Jr. was my favorite player, and Randy Johnson was not a reliable starter for the Mariners. But I think he was throwing games to try to get traded. That's just me. I have some bitterness there.
He was not. That was one of the best teams to never win a championship, or the most exciting teams to kind of like the Orlando Magic when they had Shaq and Tracy McGrady.
Shaq and Penny.
I said, yeah, Shaq and Penny, excuse me.
That Mariners team with Griffey and A-Rod and Edgar Martinez and Jay Buhner.
Oh,
mean, Randy Johnson is your ace. Jamie Moyer was on that team.
I know this is going to stun you, but Deion Sanders has made the news again. Pat Narduzzi at the ACC spring meetings in Amelia Island said that's not the way it's meant to be. You know Narduzzi, he's the Pitt head coach. That's not what the rule intended to be. It was not to overhaul your roster. We'll see how it works out, but that to me looks bad on college football coaches across the country. The reflection is on one guy right now. When you look at it over all those kids that have moms and dads and brothers and sisters and goals in life, I don't know how many of those 70 that left really wanted to leave or they were kicked in the butt to get out. Sorry, you get paid now. The rules have changed. I would be right with Narduzzi if they weren't getting NIL money. But if you want to flip a roster, and you can because of the ability to run people off. And listen, Josh Heupel has done the same thing. I can name players that told me they were told you're probably not going to play. It's best if you move on. Sorry. That's the way things work. You don't have to sit out a year anymore like you used to. You certainly don't have to pay your way like you used to if you weren't granted a release. Them's the bigs. That's life in the big city. I can remember talking to somebody one time about, hey, we've got this great advertiser, but I hear that somebody else is coming after them. I'd hate to lose them. And he just said, that's life in the big city, Dave. And this is life in the big city. So if you don't like it, then I guess you could go to Europe and play football and probably be pretty good. But nowadays, you're getting paid. You have the ability to transfer out easily. You're not forced to sit out a year. Deion, keep it going. Josh Heupel, who's done some of this, I got no problem with it. And I would be the first person to call him out, Caleb. Did Brian Maher leave because he wanted to, or he was told it would be in his best interest? I'll leave it at that.
I half agree. I think, yes, you have to do it. So, let me break it down. Yes, I understand if you do it carefully like Josh Heupel does. I don't think there should be any rules in place. I'm with you. From a moral perspective, it's not that I'm opposed morally to the recklessness of how Deion Sanders has done it, because he just overhauled the roster in a way that we've never seen anybody do that. I think this is a little reckless on Deion's part because, look, yes, coaches are going to do this, but there's still somewhat of, there is like market capitalism going on here, which is that coaches, this can hurt you in recruiting long-term if you're seen as a coach that runs everybody off immediately. So think about it this way.
I don't think it can anymore. Go finish your point, but I don't think it does or can anymore.
I think, when inflation exploded last year, a lot of companies, a lot of retail establishments realized that they all somewhat price gouged a little bit because they realized they could use inflation as an excuse to do it. Now, they were careful when they did it. But if Walmart decides, okay, we're not just going to slightly price gouge, we're going to triple all our prices just for the heck of it because we can, well, then they're going to lose a lot of competition. They're going to lose to a lot of their competition at that point. That's what Deion Sanders did. He didn't meticulously think, okay, maybe I should try to be careful and maybe send off this guy or this. He comes in, he's like, everybody's gone. Y'all are all out. I'm getting my guys. I think that sends a totally different message. And I think Pat Narduzzi is thinking, maybe he can get some elite transfers and get them from Deion Sanders, who's recruiting national with Colorado.
I think Narduzzi is so behind the current state of college football that he is never, ever, ever going to catch up. I think he has been left behind. And he had gripes about Tennessee earlier before the Pitt game last year that were very antiquated. I think that guy's done and done. And I think he's going to hold on to what he can at Pitt. But the guys that are changing things are making the hard decisions. And 5 years ago, I would have said Josh Heupel shouldn't run off anybody because they have to sit a year unless they transfer down. And that's not right. But those rules are not there anymore. So go Deion, go Josh Heupel. And if players don't like it, they can base their decisions off that. But let's be real, too. If you're a guy that's not going to play, wouldn't you rather be told that? I mean, if somebody could come to you right now, Caleb, and say, this endeavor that you are taking part in, whatever it may be, maybe it's you collect Legos, and they say it's not going to work out, it's going to frustrate you, it's going to absolutely ruin your life. Well, that's what it's like sitting on the bench for 4 years and your football career is over because you're not good enough to play in the NFL. Wouldn't you want somebody to tell you that?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but I would also add this. I don't think that's all that's going on. If someone, I'm totally fine saying you're probably not going to play, you need to look elsewhere. There's a difference between that and just straight up pulling scholarships, though. And this is what I think is happening here in a lot of cases, because players, look, then if you're a lower level player who can't play at a high level, if I'm one of those guys that's never going to start at Colorado, I'd like to keep my scholarship and at least graduate from Colorado and get an education and have a degree in hand. If I'm not going to play at Colorado, I'm probably not going to the NFL. And if I'm a backup athlete that's that way, at least I can get a free education out of it. And I know that's old school thinking, but that's still a thing because the minute, you know this, Dave, the minute you enter the transfer portal, you don't have a right to an education at that point. So you better hope you land the minute you enter the portal. So if I'm an underwhelming athlete, I'd rather be the backup and hold that scholarship just so I can at least have a degree in hand when this is all said and done. So it's one thing to tell the players, hey,
pay for it.
Sorry?
Pay for it.
That's the thing. I don't want to force them out. I don't like forcing them out of their chance at a free degree.
Okay, but here's your option. You can become a regular student at this school that you attend. You've already gotten in. Maybe your grades were lagging, but they got you in because you're an athlete. So used to be they would put these guys on, it was a medical red shirt, if you remember that. So they would keep their scholarships. Okay, but the University of Tennessee, you could pay for it by getting a job, which you would have free time because you're not playing football. I also know, and I'll check on this, that UT always said that as long as you left in good standing, you could come back and get your degree. Reggie Cobb did that. Fred White did that. Dwayne Goodrich did that. They didn't have to pay a dime. So is there some sort of catch-all for those guys that don't have anywhere to go, but you can still go down, play football, get a scholarship, or you can stay and pay for yourself. The bottom line is you prove you weren't good enough for a job, and that's what this is now. This is no more Philly good student athlete stuff.
No, okay, here's what I'm saying. Let's put it this way. If you decide to enter the portal, all bets are off. We agree there, right? You decide that is your decision. No matter what a coach says, you decide to enter the portal.
And for those that don't know, they don't have to take you back if you enter the portal.
Yes, they don't have to take you back. If you choose not to enter the portal, regardless of what a coach says or is trying to do, I think 4 years of free education should be binding, provided you're in good academic standing, regardless of whether or not you're going to play or be able to start or anything like that. That's just where I'm at.
I have no problem with them saying that, yes, you can still be on scholarship, like the old medical red shirt scholarships. That's what they would do. If a guy couldn't play, but he was a good dude and he didn't want to go elsewhere, they'd say medical red shirt. Well, if he were Peyton Manning, he'd have that knee worked on, right? But this guy wasn't good enough, and they figured it out. So they did that a lot. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with them being kept on scholarship, but I also don't have a problem with them pulling scholarships. I mean, okay, you're not going to see this a lot. So Colorado should step up and say all the guys, if they want to stay and just be students, then they can keep their scholarship. So, and go to school. But what gets really weird, and not to get too deep in the weeds on this, is the athletic department actually pays the university. There is a transfer of money at the University of Tennessee, and I assume at the University of Colorado. So it's not as easy as me just saying like, hey, walk into the movies for free. You know, I'm the guy that takes the ticket, but you go ahead. It's not quite that easy. So there are financial repercussions, but I would like to think somebody could figure that out and they would get to keep their scholarship. But I think most kids would want to transfer down and still play.
Oh, I think so too. But that's leave that option with the kids is all I'm saying. You enter the portal, it's fair game. I'm not, I look, at that point, I am with you. It's a business. It's, you made that decision. You are 18, you're 19, you're an adult. You made the decision. You risked it all. You better hope you find somewhere. But
yeah, but Caleb, I do see what you're saying, but in practicality, it's not going to work. Because if I put my arm around you and I say, son, it ain't working out, and you say, well, no, I'm keeping my scholarship, and you're saying that I, as a coach, shouldn't pull that, then I'm going to make life a living hell on you in practice every day until you leave.
Okay, but
you see what I'm saying? I mean, that's the way it's going to play out. Deion's going to have some dude running 5 million wind sprints every practice.
Okay, and this is where the school should step in and say, okay, maybe the scholarship, we'll find a way to help you keep your scholarship. But again, this is why you have to be artful with it. The artful dodger, Constance Holloway. You got to be the artful dodger, and you have to be a little more careful, which is, okay, if it's one or two people, like if Josh Heupel says this to Brian Maurer, and Brian Maurer decides to want to stay at the university, and the university finds a way to keep his contract, or keep his scholarship, excuse me. You can't do that with like 60 people. You can't do that with more with 2/3 of the football team.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening.
No, I mean, you can't. The school can't keep the school can't like keep the scholarships of 2/3 of the football team at that point. And so I think it's just reckless for Deion to go this level. And again, he's doing this. We're acting like Deion has proven something as a head coach, guys.
No, I agree. But we're also acting like Colorado has proven something as an athletic department over the past 20 years, and they haven't. Today's tough question. We'll talk some Georgia Bulldogs who can't put the brakes or even, I don't know, they can't even slightly touch the brakes on their driving problems. This is a serious deal, Georgia fans. You got a problem. And I got a problem with hitting the wrong button. Today's tough question brought to you by Craft Treats, so you can put the edit point there, Caleb.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
CraftTreats.com. Use the promo code Off the Hook. Get 20% off your pet's treats that can have CBD in them that will help with digestive issues, arthritis, or anxiety. It's pretty awesome. CraftTreats.com. Use the promo code Off the Hook. Promo code Off the Hook. They have non-CBD treats as well. Your pet will love you for it. Mine does. All right. So you've got Georgia with another issue. And at our production meeting this morning, when 5 a.m., it's 4:15, I think is when it started this morning. But we were discussing this, and for a moment, I thought to myself, are we talking about are we rehashing stuff? No, we're not. Georgia receiver Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, it's quite a name, has been arrested on reckless driving and maximum limits speeding charges. This is with Mike Griffith of Dog Nation, senior from Pompano Beach, Florida, arrested on the misdemeanor charges at 4:33 p.m., okay, taken to jail. They take you to jail if you're really driving reckless. Okay, so there's an issue. Continuing trend of players getting arrested on speeding and reckless danger charges, despite educating and training aimed specifically at the dangerous driving issues. Kirby Smart said, quote, "We brought in Athens Clarke County Police and UGA Police to address a lot of these issues with our team in a team meeting setting, and played some video of things that were going on in Atlanta drag racing and things." You're deflecting the blame. It's your guys that are doing it. I mean, the Atlanta drag racing thing, yeah, people drive like idiots in that city, but just because they're drag racing doesn't mean you should be drag racing. And there's probably people doing fentanyl on the side of the streets. Doesn't mean your players should be doing fentanyl. So 2 of the 4 players that have been arrested this offseason on driving-related issues were arrested after Smart spoke of the educational videos that were shown to the team. So that didn't do any good. Turbulent offseason for the Bulldogs with the tragic deaths of offensive guard Devin Willock, rest in peace, sir, and recruiting staffer Chandler LaCroix, again, rest in peace. Investigators found that LaCroix was speeding excessively, reaching 104 miles an hour. So here we go. We have another issue, and they don't take you to jail if you're going 15 miles over the speed limit. I can tell you that right now. So we have another player that's been taken to jail. Now, one of the things per Mike Griffith in this story about the arrest, and it really stood out to me, and he compared now Mike didn't cover Mark Richt. Okay, Mike was covering Tennessee and then Michigan State at the time. So Mike and I go way back. So he brought up the comparison if there is a difference between the standard under Mark Richt and the standard under Kirby Smart. Okay, so that was brought up by Mike Griffith. Smart, this is according to Mike's story. Smart has stood firm that his program is no less disciplined than when he took over for Mark Richt, saying, quote, the standards have been created here for a long time and that doesn't change. And we want our players to live up to those and mistakes they make. We treat them like we do our kids. We discipline them. We try to prevent them. We try to educate them. We try to do all we can to help our student athletes in a positive way. Our team is a very disciplined team. They'll do what they're supposed to when they're supposed to. And when they don't, they're going to face the repercussions of that. Are there the same standards at Georgia for personal behavior under Kirby Smart as there were Mark Richt? That's today's tough question, brought to you by crafttreats.com.
Hell no.
It's not even close. And by the way, we got banned from Facebook, so watch your language.
Oh, what banned? What kind of? I was wondering, how do we get banned from Facebook? What?
I don't know, but that just tells everybody out there to be sure you're on YouTube. No, you're right. Heck no. We're gonna say
there was actually.
Right. I'd rather get banned for you voicing your honest opinion. Now, it is absolutely absurd to think that the same standard under St. Mark Richt, and he really lived up to that. He wasn't like Pastor Hugh Freeze. Mark Richt lived up to it. To say the standards are the same is pure absurdity, Caleb. It ain't even close.
Yeah, and there's actually, we can track this. So for those who don't know, Mark Richt's last year, 2015, Georgia lost to Alabama in the regular season that year, 38-10. Heading into that game that week, I will never forget a Georgia official, a University of Georgia official saying, well, we just can't do what Alabama does because we care about integrity. Something along those lines. And they got laughed at and nobody cared. They made a conscious decision after that loss and after the way that season finished to say, we're not going to care about this anymore. So they got rid of Mark Richt. Here's something they did. I don't know if you know this story. And Kirby Smart was instrumental and spoke to lawmakers about this. 3 months after he was hired, he was involved in speaking to Georgia lawmakers about this in 2016. They passed a 90-day rule for the athletics department. Here's what it says. This is insane. Georgia has an open records law, like most states do. So they all have to because of the First Amendment, where you can find public records. Georgia passed a law giving athletic departments the right to withhold public records for 90 days. To withhold records for 90 days before they're open. Guys, that's insane. That is 3 months. That's ridiculous.
I didn't know that. Is this why we don't know how fast he was going?
Yes. This was passed in April of 2016. Kirby Smart was hired in December of 2015. Georgia made the conscious decision. The state, when they hired Kirby Smart, made the conscious decision. We're not going to care about integrity at all anymore. We're tired of losing. We're going to do a 180 on this. And that turned into players doing 180s on the road. But
yeah. Well, Elias brings up a good point. That's about a football season. 3 months is about a football season. So if you get in trouble in late September, October, November, December, you're still around. Then Now, you might not be around for the playoffs, I guess, theoretically, but 3 months is, I mean, they might as well just say, if it happens during the football season, we will not assess it till after the football season. I mean, it's basically what they're saying. I didn't know that law, so thank you for that. But I think it's an insult to Mark Richt for Kirby Smart to stand there and say there is the same level of off-field discipline and behavior that there was with Mark Richt. To me, that is just disrespectful to Mark Richt's legacy, his belief system, his religion. But I will say this, I don't think Georgia fans care. I think that, and I'm not singling you out, Georgia fans. I don't think a lot of fan bases would care. Go drag race if you need to, if that helps you blow off some steam because you're winning championships. So whoopee, don't care at all.
I'm going a step further at this point. Forget Kirby Smart not being Mark Richt. I think he's dangerously close to turning into Urban Meyer with the way he's thumbing his nose at the public.
You know, I thought that after our 4:05 production meeting this morning. The Urban Meyer name popped in my head, and I wondered if you might go there. Both guys that are very driven. Could Josh Heupel be the Nick Saban to Kirby Smart, the way Nick Saban was to Urban Meyer? When Nick Saban laid that thumping on him in the SEC championship game, Urban Meyer was like, "Oh man, I'm feeling chest pains. It's panic attack. I'm out of here. See ya." Could Josh Heupel be that guy to Kirby Smart? If not, who is that guy? We don't know right now, I don't think.
Yeah, we don't.
But I will tell you this, Caleb. If you let guys play, if you cover stuff up and you don't handle discipline in an effective, fair, but enforceable way that makes an impact, you will lose control of your team. I've told you this before, both on and off the show, on and off the record. That's what ultimately led to the downfall of Philip Fulmer in the early 2000s. And you can never get it back.
Yeah, no, you're right. You can't get it back. And the hard part is it kills your recruiting, because I keep saying this. Parents, 5-star athletes do not want their kids going to those cultures. They get scared to death, even if they're bad parents, even if they're non-involved parents, they don't want their kids to turn out bad. And that perception sticks. And so they're going to steer their kids away from that culture. And you're right. You're absolutely right. You can't get it back. Let's not forget, the Fulmer Cup started in 2005. Remember the starting of the Fulmer Cup?
Mm-hmm.
And Florida and Tennessee went 5-6. Now, the great irony is a Florida fan started the Fulmer Cup, and that was the year Florida hired Urban Meyer. So total shamelessness.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, the Fulmer Cup was this website that kept track of arrests and guys getting in trouble, and Tennessee was regularly towards the top of the list. But again, I don't know that we all did the digging to find out if that was really true. Smokey Hot Takes coming up, Tennessee's best quarterback of this century, and a live report from Hoover, Alabama, as the Diamond Vols try to make the College World Series, and we'll see how they end up. Not as newsy this year, but can they advance even further than that special team last year? Possibly. 2 minutes live from Hoover and the best quarterbacks of this century off the Hook Sports.
Family has been creating jewelry since 1986, each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler, and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your bear. With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassy's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassy Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. With a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Objective coverage. Hey, that's new.
If we get caught, we're going to jail.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app.
I'm going to need to see some identification.
Back to Dave Hooker.
Smokey Hot Takes as we look back at the Vols. And today it seems as if the Vols got a little bit slighted by a national publication that took a look at quarterbacks this century and had the top 75. Caleb, how many Vols were in that list of the top 75 quarterbacks of this century?
A resounding 0.
Hey now.
That's not good. Do you find that to be accurate?
I went through the list, and no, I don't find it to be accurate. There are some quarterbacks that Tennessee could have had some guys over, but I will say that there are some that I also thought were too low. So just for context, Matt Ryan was number 75 on the list. He should have been higher. Anybody who watched Matt Ryan at Boston College in the mid-2000s knows he should be higher on that list. He single-handedly carried them to an ACC title. But some of the other, I think,
receivers.
I'm sorry?
Had a pretty good group of receivers, but anyway.
Yeah, but I think they did a lot of this as 4-year accomplishments because, look, David Green was on here. Look, I'm sorry. Let's take Hendon. I know David Green was a 4-year starter, but are you taking Hendon Hooker or David Green, Dave? Come on.
Okay, so let's get to it now. We're going to rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it gives us a great chance to look back at some stellar performances that occurred under very questionable administration and coaching. So, Caleb, let me begin with you. Do you want to do a countdown? Because I have my countdown ready. I can go first or you can go first. And I'm going to do it by my own rules. So I'm not doing it by the rules that have been laid out by this publication. So would you like me to go first or would you like to go first?
Why don't we alternate 5-5, 4-4, 3-3, 2-2, 1-1 and see how we end up?
Okay. All right. Let's count them down. You have, my friend, the first go at number 5. So who do you have at number 5?
My number 5, and it's by default, and he doesn't deserve it because he has the worst intangibles of anybody I've ever seen play quarterback, is Tyler Bray. Because even if he had terrible intangibles, his arm was just so special.
It was. Now, before I get to my number 5, who's your number 4?
My number 4 is Eric Ainge.
Okay. I'm going to agree with you. I think Tyler Bray is number 5. I'm actually, though, going to have Eric Ainge a little higher. So I have Josh Dobbs at number 4. And then that's my number 4. My number 3 is Eric Ainge. Actually, I'm going to take a pivot. Hendon Hooker is my number 3. Hendon Hooker is my number 3. What do you think of that?
I think that's crazy. Look at the last 2 years. That's insane. I'm sorry.
I'm basing this a lot off what they did in terms of team success. So that's why I've got Bray 5. I've got Dobbs at 4. And then I'm going to go Hooker at 3. I've got Eric Ainge at number 2 because of team success.
But hold on. I know Ainge technically won the East in 2007.
He didn't technically win the East. He did win the East.
Yes. But Tennessee never had a top 10 finish under him.
Well, I mean, you've got a coach who's on his way out, who's struggling. And if not for David Cutcliffe, that program falls apart like 3 years earlier.
Okay, but if we're talking about a quarterback that is saving a coach, then Josh Dobbs should be number 1 because he single-handedly kept Butch Jones from being fired like 3 years earlier.
Well, that's true. Okay, so I've got a countdown. Bray 5, top quarterbacks at Tennessee in the 2000s or the entire century, the 21st century. Would it be the 22nd? Anyway, Bray 5, Dobbs 4. That's my countdown. Hooker 3, Ainge 2. Ainge 2. Do you know who I've got as number 1?
Oh yeah, this is obvious. He's
Okay,
my number 2, but he's your number 1.
Go with yours. You're 4 and your countdown.
So I've got Bray 5, Ainge 4, Dobbs 3, Casey Clausen 2.
It's insanity. It's pure insanity. There is no question. Casey Clausen was a different level of quarterback than everybody we're talking about. Even Hendon Hooker, who I've got great respect for, but he found himself in a fantastic situation. Casey Clausen could go on the road. If he was Tennessee's quarterback this year, instead of an unproven Joe Milton, then Tennessee would be an in vogue pick to win a national championship. Casey Clausen was that good.
No, Hendon Hooker was better, and I'll tell you why. Casey, and I don't want to nitpick Casey because you're right, he was clutch. Didn't always he was clutch when he against the better teams, but he didn't always live up to the expectations against the lesser teams, and you know that to be true more than I do, Dave.
Well, that was the program as a whole, though.
But all right, let's break Casey Clausen. When you want to bring up team success, both Hooker and Clausen had one 11-2 season in which they finished in the top 6, roughly. Okay, Casey Clausen's 11-2 season, he had the best running back in the SEC. He had the best tight end of all time in NFL history that he was throwing to. He had 2 NFL wide receivers and one of the most loaded offensive lines that Philip Fulmer ever had. So he regressed in 2002. He got worse the next 2 years, Casey Clausen. Some of that's on Randy Sanders because he did not have good coaching. I will be the first to tell you Casey Clausen did not have good coaching, whereas Hendon Hooker had superb coaching the last couple of years. But Clausen did regress. Hooker, yes, you were going to say he had a Remington Award winner in Jalen Hyatt. Hendon Hooker made him a Remington Award winner. I don't think Jalen Hyatt is going to be that good of an NFL receiver.
Okay, so you've got, you mean Biletnikoff, right?
Yeah, did I say Remington? Yeah, I meant Biletnikoff, sorry.
That would be amazing if Jalen Hyatt won the Remington. So I got Casey, Ainge, Hooker, Dobbs, Bray. And
I've got Hooker, Casey, Dobbs, Ainge, Bray. And the thing with Ainge also, you can't ignore that 2005 season and how poor he played.
Well, no, you can't. But how about the impact of that was, again, a team issue. Like the two things you referenced, I thought were team issues in that Tennessee played down to its competition. Casey was certainly a part of that. And I think that 2005 was a dumpster fire. Ainge was a part of that. I don't think either one of them were responsible for that. And Casey Clausen's not the raw leader. Where you could have me on Hendon Hooker is leadership ability. I felt like Casey was one of the dudes, and you knew that he was going to be clutch and fine, and you didn't have to worry about it. But did he raw guys? Did he inspire leadership? I think of raw guy, Al Wilson. Check out the Celebrate 98 series, by the way, which continues with the Travis Stevens and Travis Henry. So Al Wilson's a raw guy. Hendon Hooker's the inspirational leader. I don't think Casey Clausen was either one of those, but I might want to second guess that a little bit because he's turned into a heck of a coach out in Cali. So now I think that Casey Clausen is probably one of the top 5 quarterbacks in Tennessee football history. So I'm way higher on him than you.
No, I still have him in my top 5 too in Tennessee football history. Most of my quarterbacks in Tennessee football history in my top 5 are this century. But wait, let me push back a little bit though. Maybe I could sway you with this, Dave. Legendary, like wins, like memorable wins. Hendon Hooker's most memorable win was against Alabama last year, right? By far. That may be the greatest win in Tennessee football history for a regular season. Casey Clausen had 2 of those. I think we both agree at Florida 2001 in the Swamp, right? Was one of them. The other one at Miami in 2003.
Yes.
I
wouldn't give Casey a lot of credit for that one. That was coaching. But anyway.
I agree. That's where I was getting at. I wouldn't give Casey a lot of credit for either of those wins. He threw for 168 yards at Florida. Travis Stevens ran for over 200 yards in that game. That's what won the game. And Casey didn't even throw for 100 yards at Miami. But I tell you what, I'll tell you what, you give Hendon Hooker more credit than anybody for the Alabama win.
Fair. I give Casey Clausen a lot of credit for what he did at Florida to be able to manage the ship. I'm not calling him Trent Dilfer, but I mean, that was well, I mean, in that
you're saying him managing the ship was better than Hendon Hooker actually going out and winning the game himself.
I didn't say better than. I'm giving you the 2001 as yes, he didn't go out there and win it by throwing for 300 bajillion yards, but that was a tough place to play. If you remember, that was 2001 because of 9/11. I know you remember.
Oh yeah,
that was essentially a playoff game. You know, that was a rabid, ready fan base. So I thought his cool demeanor was that. And as Steve Spurrier had put his ego aside for just long enough, then Casey would have thrown and could have thrown. But it just absolutely wasn't going to happen. Spurrier was determined to throw the ball despite the fact that Tennessee was playing the pass. So Casey and Tennessee were able just to hand the ball off and play a little bit of ball control. But now Casey Clausen is one of the most misunderstood quarterbacks in Tennessee football history. I don't understand why so many fans didn't like him. It makes no sense to me. I think he was one of the top 5 quarterbacks in Tennessee football history, and I've got him number 1 in the 2000s. Since the turn of the century, I've got him as number 1.
I can't. That also, because another one I'm going to go, there are losses I actually put on Casey. I can't put either of Tennessee's losses on Hooker last year. Like the 0-1 loss to LSU, I partially put that on Casey. Now, yes, Stallworth fumbled, Stevens fumbled, but Casey wasn't able to really carry the team in that game when things were going south. I also put, here's a big one, Dave. Okay, Florida 0-1, playoff game to win the East. Georgia 0-3 was a playoff game to win the East in the middle of October. How did Casey Clausen play in that game?
That's fair. I mean, none of these guys are perfect. I mean, it's not like we're comparing. If we said back to 1990, it would be Peyton Manning. And I understand your argument for Hendon Hooker, but I do think a lot of things fell his way. Out of that group, though, if I'm starting a football team, which is what I based mine off of, I would go Casey Clausen.
Not in Heupel's offense, because you need a little bit of mobility, too.
Actually, I think he'd be really good. That you don't?
Casey, no, because Casey's not. We talked about this a couple of months ago. Remember, the mobility and the big arm are the most important parts of Heupel's offense. And Casey and Peyton Manning had the worst mobility of any Tennessee quarterbacks. The only difference is Peyton Manning had David Cutcliffe to coach him how to move in the pocket. Whereas Casey Clausen had a former running backs coach in Randy Sanders, who was nothing but a recruiter, coaching him how to move in the pocket. I'm sorry. I'm being too hard on Randy Sanders, but.
Smokey Hot Takes, we'll be breaking down some age-old Tennessee questions from time to time. If you got a topic you want us to tackle, leave it in the comments below. We certainly appreciate that. It's brought to you by AndyMasonRealEstate.com. AndyMasonRealEstate.com has the best service and prices in the biz. AndyMasonRealEstate.com will get you in the right home, save you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Again, that's Smokey Hot Takes. So leave in the comment section below. Do you want us to tackle best running backs of the past 50 years, whatever the case may be? And we'll continue this series throughout the summer and into the fall. But we're now joined by a very special guest. Zach Haire joins us, and he is in Hoover, Alabama. There you are, Zach.
How's it going, guys?
We're great, man. How are you?
Doing good. A little warmer day, a little drier as well.
Yeah, that'd be nice if they wouldn't get rain. So Zach's with Eddie Sports Treasures there in Halls, and it's a crazy time for collectibles. I've learned that through my son, who actually collects Legos, like whole Lego sets.
Yep.
But yeah, tell them what you've got going on there at Sports Treasures in Halls.
Yeah, so we are coming up on what will be the 1 year of me taking over the shop. So we are a sponsor of Sport Fest. I'm sure a lot of people out there have heard about it. Coming up here June the 3rd, this coming a week from Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We are the sponsor of the autograph area. There are going to be a lot of the guys from the 98 team, coaches, players coming back for that. So in conjunction with that, we're going to be doing a pretty big sale next week. And with that, Memorial Day, everything. Haven't came up with a catchy name for it yet. Still working on it.
Let me work on that. Back in my drinking days, I could come up with something pretty creative, Zach, but I'll work on that.
Yep. So be looking at our social medias, Facebook, Sports Treasures, Instagram on Sports Treasures TN. We'll be posting all of that pretty soon. Probably going to be some pretty good sales on UT autographs and unautographed items, as well as, like you said, cards, singles, boxes, not necessarily sports cards. We're, on Saturdays, Pokemon's pretty big at the shop.
Yeah.
So as well as apparel, we have that, and then other signed mini helmets, baseballs, footballs, jerseys. Got a good selection of any Chiefs fans out there. Recently, we're at the draft for a card show and picked up a lot of Chiefs memorabilia while we were out there.
Nice. All right. So Eddie retired. So is it still Eddie Sports Treasures, or is Zach Sports Treasures, or just Sports Treasures?
So it's just Sports Treasures. Actually, it was never legally Eddie Sports Treasures.
Okay.
He just kind of called it that because, hey, I'm going to Eddie's, that type of thing. And so over the year, it's Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that's made it a little difficult. We have gotten it back to where it's just Sports Treasures. The only thing that's not Sports Treasures is our eBay store is still the Wall of Fame. That was my my personal one. Going in. A lot of people from Knoxville remember the Wall of Fame from back in the day.
Yeah.
I used to work there when the owner passed away. I was able to purchase the eBay store at that time. So that's the only thing that's not Sports Treasures. But everything else is Sports Treasures.
Okay, so I assume you're a big baseball fan. You're in Hoover, Alabama. Yeah. After such a just incredible season that caught national acclaim and criticism last year, what has been your thoughts on the Vols throughout this season?
So it's interesting. I have a buddy of mine. We were actually equipment managers for the team
cool.
when Serrano was there. We were there the 3 years that Senzel was on the team. So we were on those teams. We were part of those teams that made it back to Hoover after the few years of being off. So it's definitely been a fun ride the last few years. I mean, I got season tickets once I graduated, and I couldn't give them away the first couple of years. And then the team starts playing better, hosting regionals, super regionals, midweek games. People are calling me asking for tickets again. But the biggest difference from last year and this year, last year had a lot of those first round guys, brought back the pitching staff, and kind of steal some information from Coach Serrano because he was on there the other day. I think this team had a lot on their back coming in. They had a lot of expectations, talking about preseason number one, and even Coach Vitello himself said, hey, that's, we're not quite there yet. But it's been fun this year. They're more of a true team. They've got the pitching. I mean, when you get into tournament play, especially regional, super regional, you've got three pitchers in a bullpen. You can contend with anybody. And I mean, we've got, I would say, three of the the best starters out there, and then you've got a back end of your bullpen with Kirby and Burns and Camden Sewell that come out and shut people down. And I mean, Havlicek yesterday, he pitched well. The weather just didn't do us any favors. It was pretty much raining the entire game. Deer Hoyer, Tennessee was playing.
Zach, it's funny, flying under the radar right now, while the baseball team is probably is what we would say not entering the NCAA tournament with the same type of momentum and success they had last year. On the other side, the softball team is having its best season since Monica Abbott was there in 2007. Yeah. So here's my question. Karen Weekly or Tony Vitello, who gets a national championship first?
Ouch.
Probably Vitello, and just because Oklahoma is so dominant in women's softball, I think that would just make it tough. I mean, this is the year if the Lady Vols can do it. This would be the year to do it, but long term, you get the beating in the SEC all year, and that prepares you for the NCAA tournament, and can get hot at the right time. But I think if Karen Weekly's to get it before Tony, it would be this year. But I think long term, I think baseball has the better shot just because of the softball is so top heavy most years.
Yeah,
so
they should have had.
Go ahead, Caleb. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, softball already should have had it because Monica. I mean, they had that series in 2007. I mean, that's got to be one of the. If you want to talk about in Tennessee athletics, maybe the most heartbreaking type of loss in Tennessee athletics history. that series, Arizona in 2007.
Yeah, I remember watching that.
So, as far as the baseball team, kind of your final thoughts on this season, and then still in contention for the NCAA tournament, right?
Yeah. So they definitely. I know they were fighting for a host coming into the SEC tournament. My thoughts were they probably need to go 2-2 to get that host. But just to get the job done yesterday, pretty much everything's out there's got them going as a 2 seed in a regional. A lot of it's about pairing. If you get somebody that's hot, if we play like we did against South Carolina and find that momentum we had against Vanderbilt. With that rotation, I think you can compete with anybody in the country, and all you got to do is get hot at the right time. I definitely think they can do it. I mean, last year's Ole Miss team was the last team in the tournament, and they were the last team standing at the end as well. So if you can get hot at the right time, they've got the pitching, they've got the bats. Burke's due to come out of that slump anytime now. As well. And then Maui's turned it around after getting through that. A little bit of injury, it slowed him down first half of the year. Griffin Merritt's been a key part for them as a transfer coming in. And then, as long as Dickey is healthy, hopefully he's been playing these last couple of games. So get him to stay healthy. That's, those guys I think can carry you offensively, and knock on wood, they seem to clean up the errors they had earlier in the year. So that's a big part too. You just got to play catch, as John Wilkerson would say.
John, yeah, I know John well. That is one fantastic individual there. So he had to put up with some of my shenanigans back in the day. Yeah. But Zach, great stuff, man. Again, Sports Treasures. How do we find you online and in locale?
Yeah. So best place on Facebook, Sports Treasures on Facebook, Instagram, Sports Treasures TN. We post all new product. Today there was I'm not down there, but there are several. Products came out today. We'll have they'll be posting on there, and then we were off North Broadway, 4819 North Broadway, shopping center next to Big Lots and Harbor Freight, kind of in between there. And the 31st, I believe we're planning on doing a football break for those people that do cards. They know what that means to them. So check us out there, and be looking out for some sales this coming week as our kind of 1 year anniversary.
It's crazy. A year flies by. It's my 1 year anniversary of Off the Hook Sports, and it just it flies by. All right, Zach, have a blessed day, safe travels, and thanks for the update.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, buddy. That's Zach Haire of Sports Treasures. Pretty cool stuff. All right, that does it for us. We want to be sure and thank City Heating and Air Conditioning, who's just down the road from Sports Treasures. Integrity Matters, cityheatandair.com. They are fantastic. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of